And this really disturbed me last year when we were breaking for summer, when it came to my morning routine and just whatever I used to do. Because normally, initially, I would wake up at 5 and I would have 2 hours, and 2 hours would be for maybe prayers and all the morning routine stuff, and then 1 hour going to workout, and I would go outdoor. But now when we went for the break, it meant that the schedule completely changed. I was no longer having time like to wake up in the morning because of maybe whatever plans I had or whatever schedule I had at that time. So the only time you would find you're now available is that maybe you're waking up at 11 or you're waking up at 10 and you are awake maybe between 10 to let's say 4 before something else starts. And it took me a long while to really realize that no, you actually can do these things just when you wake up still. You don't have to wait for a day that you'll now have to wake up at 5 to do them.
Hello everyone, welcome to Balance It podcast. Balance It is a platform that empowers young men and women to live a purposeful life. We help you navigate through the challenges of life and gain stability in all your spheres of life.
We engage in conversations relating to purpose-driven living, health, fitness, entrepreneurship, and anything related to lifestyle.
Our massive transformative purpose is transformation through wellness.
If you like this episode, make sure that you subscribe and share it with your family and friends. I am Gertrude Nasike.
And I am Eda Onyoni. Welcome back to the Balance It podcast. In today's episode, we'll be having a conversation about habits, forming new habits, breaking bad habits, and actually being consistent in our noble habits. And to begin with, we have to understand the facts about habits.
Yeah.
Take it up, Gertrude.
So I think I'll just go briefly through how habits are formed. And basically, I'm gaining my insights from the famous Atomic Habits book. Mm-hmm. And the way habits are formed in our brains, it's like we have 4 elements that actually try to explain how habits are formed. And there's one which is the cue, which basically means the trigger, what trigger is in your brain. For instance, maybe it's the smell of the smell of cake being baked. Mm-hmm. That might trigger maybe you going buying it. So basically, a cue is what triggers the next step, which comes to a craving. Now the trigger creates a craving, that desire for you to actually want to act on a particular thing. And just taking the example of the cake, now the cue is you having that smell, and then the desire is you actually wanting to go and get that cake that is being baked.
Yes.
And from the craving, you go to now the response, and the response is now the action that you take in order to ensure that you're now satisfying your craving. And once you take this action, it definitely gives a satisfaction, and you gaining that satisfaction brings about the 4th element of reward. Now you've rewarded your cue by taking an action, which means that you're now fulfilling the craving which you've gained from the trigger. Mm-hmm. So basically, habit formation takes these 4 steps. You're having a cue first, and then from the cue there's a craving, and from the craving you're going to respond, and from responding you're now going to feel like you've rewarded yourself. Yes,
and that is in terms of all habits, in terms of new habits, old habits, in terms of good habits in terms of bad habits, right?
I would just say, for me, like I would say it's in terms of good habits. Because for bad habits, I would say probably you'll need to identify first the trigger. And then, but I feel like having the but that makes sense actually.
Yeah.
If you put it, I would, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah, it's in all of them because for the bad habits, you're also going to identify the trigger and then have the craving to actually stop the habit, take action, and the reward is now like you finally
Yeah.
got done with the bad habit. Yeah,
Exactly.
that makes sense. In all the habits aspects, you can literally follow this 4-step rule. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it just happens unintentionally in our minds.
Yes, it happens unintentionally, but it takes you to start. Like you need to start it because by the time when it gets to unintentionality, it means that you've now been consistent enough to actually do it without reasoning, without thinking about it so much about it. But when it comes to now habit formation, you will first of all need intentionality before it gets to a point whereby the brain just doesn't overthink about the trigger and you just continuously follow through with the entire habit. Because forming a new habit, if you've not started a new habit, your brain hasn't registered that this is normal. Like from this, I'm actually going to just do this. No. Yeah. So I believe that for it to come to a point whereby you're not thinking so much about doing it and it's just going with the flow needs to really come from a point of you now starting to do it and now being consistent with it. Yes.
And I think actually based on whatever you just spoken, then definitely we have misconceptions about habits.
Yeah, there are very many misconceptions about habits. The famous that I know of is the 21-day rule. Honestly, I didn't know it's a misconception until the end of last year when I started reading that Atomic Habits book. Like I didn't know the 21-day rule was a misconception because for me I used to try and follow it, and not that intentionally, but sometimes I would start a habit and then do it for 3 weeks and I'm like, hey, it seems like I'm getting better in this, and because I'm not struggling in it, and I would say, there's even a 21-day rule of habit formation, so probably this thing is true. But recently I actually learned that it is not true. And because different habits also take different times to form, and also depending on an individual themselves and the intentionality themselves, creating that consistent consistent pattern would just definitely help you in creating a habit. But if you're doing something for 21 days also without intentionality, the most probable thing after 21 days, it might not happen.
True.
But on the other side, I feel like even psychologically, the 21-day rule misconception can be very helpful, because now you'd find for someone who is trying to form a habit and they have a target of just being consistent for 21 days. I feel like it's really going to help them, because after 21 days, if you've been consistent, you'll realize that maybe, let's take for instance fitness, you'll realize that your body is very light by the 3rd week, because if you started a bit heavy but you've been consistent, by the 3rd week some things should just be coming naturally, or your body will be light enough you won't even think of not doing it, you see. So I feel like psychologically speaking, the 21-day rule misconception can actually be a plus when it comes to habit formation, if you look at it in that way. I don't know, what's your opinion on it?
I agree, but now bringing the aspect of intentionality and not having just being like a checklist that after these 21 days then I will have created this habit and then now what next? Which brings me to another misconception that I have actually come to it's something that I'm still unlearning from my mind,
Yeah.
is the fact that habit formation only requires repetition. When we talk about consistency, that is the repetition that we are talking about. But we are also not looking at the other aspects of your emotional well-being, your spiritual well-being, your environment, because these are all things that matter when it comes to our habit formation. So even if it is habit formation, yes, there is the consistency in it, which is very important.
Yes.
But we cannot just say that creating a new habit is just about the consistency. We also have to look at our whole beings. Are we whole as individuals? Then that is how actually, if we want to create a new habit and that is a good habit, we can actually be able to see it through. Otherwise, if we just focus on that habit every day, and our all other lives are going or maybe falling down, then it would be a waste of actually even the 21 days.
Yeah, true that. That's very true.
Yeah.
And I think in regards to what you said, I feel like habit formation or having habits has a very high impact on our other goals. Would you probably tell us, like, what's your take on this?
I think 100%, because it's the same conversation we were having the other day about us being consistent in our fitness journey, what impact it has had on our other areas of life.
Yeah, true.
So you get that maybe you decide to go to work out in the evening, and you know at 6 p.m. maybe you have to work out.
Yeah.
The ripple effect, or maybe how your evening is going to turn out, will be definitely different.
Yeah.
And that would mean that that specific time, like after you have worked out, whatever that you're going to do, if you have said that you're going to maybe work on your future goals, then it is going to have an impact, and you are actually going to do them, because now your body is recharged, and especially after workout, your body is recharged and you just want to kill it. Yeah, so I feel like forming habits have a very big impact on your goals, be it your long-term goals, be it your short-term goals. And it's the same thing that I was talking about, be it spirituality, if you have a goal in spirituality, maybe finances, your mental health, taking care of your mental health on a daily basis, that you are intentional about it, or deciding to save in every month. That is a habit that you are forming.
True.
Definitely. True. If you decide to save, if your goal is to have 1 million at the end of the year, and you decide to save consistently every month, definitely it is going to impact your goal. So the goals are like wherever that we want to go, but these small habits are the roadmap to where we want to go. So we can't get to the goals before we actually go throughout the process of actually forming these habits and being in the habits.
That's a very good way to put it, actually. And just to add on the ripple effect aspect, I just noticed that we've even discussed this in one of our accountability groups, where most people were saying that the moment they started being consistent with one habit of their life, they would just feel like every other it was much easier to stay consistent with other aspects of their goals. So you would find maybe someone, just as you've said, a fitness, or maybe you have a morning routine that you follow through. You would find the moment that you keep being consistent with maybe following that routine, or even just writing a to-do list for that morning, you would find that most of the things in your list have been tackled, or you'd be following through with it. But the moment you break consistency in one of those habits that you've formed, you just realize automatically some of the other aspects of your life also stop being consistent. You see, because I think it creates some psychological pause in our minds, and maybe kind of blocks also these other aspects, because it's like your mind is now on rest, or it has realized deformity, or rather a breakage in these habits. And that was really powerful.
Yeah.
And just as we are at it, most of the time you can't start a habit just from nowhere. And I'm like, maybe you're saying, me, this is Edda, today I'm saving all the 100,000 once. Like, today I've woken up and I'm saving this 100,000, and you've literally never saved in your entire life. What do you think is the importance of starting small when trying to form these habits? Yes.
I was reading somewhere, it's when it comes to habit formation, it's like you're creating a neural pathway in your brain. So that neural pathway, it's like a baby. So you have to continue creating it and forming it. So a baby cannot live from just being a toddler to an adult or an adolescent, all that at once. Definitely there will be some deformities.
Yeah.
So when we are creating these neural pathways in our brains, we need those small micro habits to help us get there. And that is why we are preaching consistency over intensity.
Yeah, true.
Because you said, I'm going to start saving that 100,000 today. From where? From where you have to start from 0, 10,
true.
20, 30 to get to the 100,000 that you wish. And I can say something that has really worked for me actually in terms of my wellness, I can say is those small habits. And I can say things like journaling. There are some days that I actually didn't feel like journaling. When I started like my journaling journey, there are some days that I didn't feel like journaling. But it was a point of I am okay even if I don't feel like journaling. And it got to a point whereby I realized that actually journaling was helping me. So I decided, let me start it, even if it is just one sentence in a day. And I actually do it. I used to feel like I am feeling better. Like it's like I have put my thoughts down somewhere. That was it. It just started with one day. I decided I'm not even going to write like a whole paragraph, because I thought like journaling is like writing a whole paragraph of how your day was and how you felt. So I decided, let me start with just one sentence, 2 sentences. How was I feeling today? And how are my emotions today? And it actually got to a point where I actually want to continue writing and continuously writing. And it got to a point where I'm writing like 3 paragraphs. And I actually don't know what I was writing about, but I felt better once I started journaling. And there is this aspect of pushing yourself so much. And it is mostly coming either from maybe comparing yourself with other people who are doing better. Those are just things that are in our minds. But just knowing myself and doing what I felt like, because it is something that I felt was important for me, that discipline of just those small habits now led me to get to a point where I actually enjoy journaling and just putting my thoughts down on paper or my app somewhere. And I believe it is very important. It's the same as saving. The small habits might look like talking to the maybe financial institution that you want to save. Those are like the small habits. And then now coming to actual saving, you have to start with saving 20, 30, the same way we have said. And then those, if you do it consistently, then you will get there. But otherwise, if you do it maybe 20,000 today, and then the next day you're not even in a position to actually save, then it will actually break that chain. And breaking that chain, now coming back to it is a whole problem.
That's really nice, like very powerful. I would add on it and say another reason as to why we need to start small is so as to also not feel discouraged, honestly. Because just taking an example of saving, as you've told us, if you're saving 20,000 today, you just started 20,000 today, and you know your financial situation wouldn't allow you to keep being consistent with saving the 20,000. the next time maybe you're saving monthly or you're saving weekly, you won't be in a position to save that 20,000. And before you know it, you're now feeling discouraged and down because you cannot even stay consistent. So in comparison to now starting small, if you're now saving like, let's say, 1,000, slowly weekly, as you keep building up your savings amounts, depending on how comfortable you feel, you will be able to really manage and service that saving, makes it a little bit easier. You feel more motivated to keep doing it and not just feeling discouraged. The same thing is also, let's say, in also our fitness journey. When you just start, one day you're like, I'm going to the gym and I'm lifting weights. No, you cannot. You have never even stepped, even or tried to lift a hand in your own room using even the online channels for working out. But you just want, one day feel very much motivated to go to the gym and lift weights. No, the next day you won't even feel the strength to go out there and do it. So starting small and just being in a mental position to actually get into this space, because I feel like when you start small, it's like you're tricking your brain. There's a way it works psychologically that it just keeps motivating you, and you can keep going on with those small consistent habits, as compared to having just one big massive and hooray, today you decided to do it. So I think that's another point I would like to share with our viewers, that it also helps you to stay encouraged and disciplined in the journey. And you can also share with us some of the reasons as to why starting small is, and also the habits you've tried forming.
Yeah, true. And also you just spoken about, and I've also remembered that our brains love familiarity. We don't like change.
True.
So every time that you are doing that small habit, it's like you are creating that familiarity in your mind. And with time, now your brain will now not be rebelliant. It will be now okay to do it willingly. And that is why every time we are creating a new habit, there is always some imbalance in your life, or you are always feeling like there is something that is distracting you. You don't feel okay because you're introducing a new thing into your lifestyle that is not common. Which brings us to the next thing, which is called habit stacking. Maybe you can tell us what habit stacking is.
So basically, habit stacking is compiling or attaching previous habits that you've already formed, or something you're already doing, to a new habit that you want to form. So for instance, we can say, maybe I want to start listening to podcasts, or to start listening to audiobooks, but it's not a habit I have. But I do work out a lot. Maybe I do enjoy runs, or just walking around in the park. To make it not feel like it's very stressful, like I need to sit down and start a new habit, I can decide to attach listening to podcasts to a habit that I'm already doing, which is running or walking, taking a walk in the park. So it becomes, as I walk in the park, I can listen to podcasts. Or once I'm done having to write it down, maybe once I'm done working out, I will listen to this podcast maybe for 5 minutes, and just making sure that after this, there's another habit actually following through. That makes it a little bit easier, or much easier, to incorporate a new habit into your system.
I totally agree with that, because when I started reading, I was not a reading person, but I really wanted to start reading because I know the importance of reading. And I decided to I didn't know like about habit stacking that much. But I started to put reading immediately after my prayers in the morning, because I normally use my phone for my prayers. So, because I'm still using my phone,
Yeah, you
and
can.
I'm online reader.
Yeah.
So I can continue even after my prayers. I can continue
Yes.
with online reading.
Wow.
So like I've realized that it is actually helping me. But now the thing is, you just need to add some more minutes into your morning
True.
routine to just incorporate the reading. But over time it became so easy because it's still part of my morning, and it is also important to me.
True.
So I totally agree with that.
That's really nice, because you find that after a while, your brain just unconsciously continues with the habit. You just know, after prayers, immediately I need to do this and this and this, which is a very good thing. And I think it's very important, just as we were saying, starting small helps us to not feel discouraged, or to keep on the grind and keep going in this new habit. But I feel like also another very important aspect of making us to stay consistent and just stay at it is tracking these habits. Because if you cannot really measure, or you cannot assess whether you're on the right track, most of the times you might feel discouraged, because sometimes maybe you might be looking for results, but you're not seeing the results, but people are telling you, just focus on the habits, just focus on staying consistent. So sometimes we really have to see how we can track our habits. You can share with us some of your thoughts on them.
Yeah, I agree totally, because even as goals, it's important to track them, to see where you are moving, where are you going, and whether you are actually on track. It's the same thing with habits. Once you have set a goal that you're going to form new habits, then it's also important to track them. And I'll talk about maybe fitness, something that I've experienced myself. I've been using this app. It's an online fitness that has helped me be on track with my fitness journey. So I do this 30-day challenge. So it is a 30-day challenge for 30 days, 30-day challenge. And once you finish that workout, you can be able to send it to a friend. There is a way that you can be able to share it with your friend. But either way, you can still see that on Monday I worked out, so it ticks. The calendar on the fitness app, it ticks. On Tuesday you worked out, it ticks. And then on Thursday you didn't work out, it does not tick. So if my goal is to form this, if my goal was to create this fitness journey for myself, then over time I've been able to use it, and it has worked for me, because my goal was to have like 4 days in a week workout. And over time I've seen that it is showing me that there is that tick on like 4 days in a week, despite being Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, next week Tuesday, Wednesday, despite however it is, I have seen that it is helping me. So using like online platforms to help us track our goals is very important, because we are definitely in a technological, in a digital era. So we have to use like we have to use the technologies that we have to be able to help us track our goals. And I think it is also important because it also keeps you on track, and gives you that motivation to continue doing it despite not seeing the results.
That's really good, because one thing I know, normally they say if there's a proven track that this thing works, just focus on the activity. Just focus on the activity, and that really helps a lot, even with the stacking. For me personally, I just like literally go and take or add to my calendar, to my Google calendar, that this day actually worked out. That's what I do for my fitness. For my gratitude journaling, it normally gives you a summary, like this is day one every month, this is day one, this is day two, this is what. And then it would also give you, as you put the entries, it would give you that, so far you have this number of entries, and then it gives you also challenges. So if you're doing 21 days challenge, it would clearly guide you. This is your day 1, this is your day 2, day 3, and if you skipped a day, it's going to tell you this day is waiting for you. You see, so it keeps you really on track. Another thing I would say, even for our phones right now, most of our phones just come with their own way of tracking. For instance, the phone I use gives you the number of steps you need, your target steps. Maybe you need to walk. When it comes to fitness, you need to walk in a day, or the number of activities you need to have done in a day. And this really helps you, and at the end of the day, if you've actually managed to get to your target, it's gonna give you a notification. If you've not managed to get to your target, it's going to give you what you managed that day. And this is very important, I believe, in our habit formation as well.
I agree. And also part of the habit tracking, I've also talked about sharing it with somebody.
Yes.
Which brings us to the aspect of maybe having an accountability partner in our journey, because we all know starting that fitness journey is not easy.
It's not easy.
But when you are maybe with a community, when you are working out with people, it might be a bit easier, because you might be tapping into the other person's energy, even if you're not willing. Or your mind is just playing mind games with you. So what do you think is the role of accountability partners as we are growing in this habit formation?
I think accountability partners really play a crucial role in consistency and us maintaining the new habits that we've formed. We've talked so much about knowing the environment you're putting yourself in. You're always an average of the people you're interacting with, and if you want to learn something, you need to put yourself in an environment where the people who are doing whatever you really want to learn, or whatever you're doing, take this activity as a norm to them. If you're trying to save, you're going to pair yourself with someone or people who actually are also investment oriented, or who have better understanding or better knowledge in this field. Do you understand? So you find that it plays a very important role, because it's going to hold you or give you the support you deserve on those days that you don't feel like it.
Sure.
The days you really don't feel like exercising, or the days that you really know you need to save, but something has really come up and you're like, I really need to sort this as well. But if you're in an accountability group, or you're paired with an accountability partner who will always remind you, don't forget that you're saving also for the future, or this is temporary. Okay, you're going to sort this thing out, and maybe it's just treating yourself, going for pizza or something. You're going to eat that money, and then you won't you won't be able to you're not going to be able to account for it the next day, or even after a few minutes. But if you're going to deny yourself and put it in a particular investment, and this can only be done if you have the support that needs, because if you're alone, your mind would easily tell you you're treating yourself. You've actually worked for it and you've struggled. It's good to take a pause at times, you see. But if you're having this support group or this accountability partner, you're going to be able to really push through. It reminds me, like I think it was yesterday. For me, I was extremely tired, and we were supposed to go to a workout. Honestly, and I'm like, I really can't. I really can't. But the fact that we were supposed to go to work out outside, and for you were insisting, and I was like, you just go. Normally, if you wouldn't, I wouldn't have an accountability partner. I would have taken a shower and slept. Honestly, I would have taken a shower and slept. But I was like, as much as I can't go outdoor today, let me just do a few stretches for like 10 minutes and that would be okay for me. My body doesn't feel like it. I'm feeling so much exhausted, but a stretch or just something to relax and still move my body would really help, instead of going to the field and running around doing so heavy exercises and my body doesn't is not in a position at that point.
Yeah.
That really shows like how having accountability partners can really impact in ensuring that you stay consistent, even if it's not to the best level that you wanted to do on that day, but you're just still consistent at it. Yes.
I agree, especially when you are beginning that journey.
Yes.
That is like the hardest, because once your body has become familiar with the whole habit, then it might be easier to just simulate into the system by yourself. But it is also important to continue also having those accountability partners as well, even after you have progressed in your journey of the habits that you wanted to implement in your life. Just a reminder as well, guys, we have an accountability group. We have a Balance It accountability group. We've been doing this from January.
From January.
So it's a group where we are a community of people, and if you would like to join us as well, we'll put the link in the description box. Where you can just join the group. So it's a group where we track our goals throughout the year, and so we meet twice in every month, the second week of every month, and the last week of every month. So we keep each other on track and have conversations such as this, whatever we are having on Balance It conversations.
So that brings us to the next point. So many times we have these setbacks, especially if you don't have the accountability group, or if you're trying to form that new habit, you have setbacks. Sometimes you might not be in a position to save the amount you were supposed to save, or go work out for a week. Yes, it's possible. Even if you are very consistent, it's possible that those days. But how do you manage these missing days? How do you manage the days you've actually gone back on your word and not stayed consistent with the habits you're forming?
It goes back to where we began from, the facts of habit formation, how your brain works. It begins with the cue, which is the trigger that you talked about. So it always goes back to the foundation. What is this thing that is triggering me, that is stopping me from achieving my goal, from achieving this new, from now breaking this bad habit and creating this new habit? So I believe it all begins from there. First of all, identifying the root cause. Identify the root cause, like do the root cause analysis of why you are actually not
feeling like it.
Exactly. And once you identify the root cause, you'll actually see that there is maybe a pattern, or it is something new that has been incorporated into your system that is not just going properly with you. And once you identify that, then it is easy to either remove it, do away with it, or continue and find like a new routine to be able to incorporate this new habit that you want to create. So I believe it all begins with the root cause. So first of all, identify why, like what is that trigger that is making you not achieve that. And I feel like it's important for people to also understand that it's okay that even if I break the cycle today, I can actually do it maybe in the evening. If I don't work out in the morning, I can also work out in the evening, as long as I have worked out on that day. Or if I didn't work out today, I can also work out tomorrow, but still be able to achieve my target in that week. Because we also have like weekly targets, daily targets. So as long as I have been able to achieve that target, like it's okay. Let's give ourselves grace, because sometimes we push ourselves so much such that our body also become rebellious for us not to even achieve that. So let's also give ourselves grace. But on those missing days, let's identify the root cause. What is that root cause that is making you not achieve whatever that you want to achieve? Something else that I have been able to see also is based on whatever that I consume. So especially when I want to create a new habit, I don't know how Google works. They normally just give you something that is related to whatever that you want to implement in your life.
The algorithms that actually tailor make your searches. Yeah, so they give you more personalized recommendations
But it's
based on
funny
it.
because even the other day, like I had not even searched about whatever that I wanted, but all of a sudden I am seeing things that are related to that thing that I wanted to achieve.
Yes, because your data is everywhere. Maybe you've been maybe you've been checking on Instagram posts or just somewhere, checking them somewhere, so you find, or even people you keep trying to connect with, maybe they're actually in that, and then they analyze this data. Like, technology is powerful, my dear.
Let's use technology,
please. Yeah,
I agree. So yes, so what was I saying?
You are talking about what you consume.
Yes, so whatever that I consume, I've realized over time has a very big impact. So if I keep on, if maybe I want, let's now note, if maybe I want to have a good morning routine, and I keep on searching for people who are, and I can see that they're actually doing great in terms of their morning routine, there is something that it happens to your brain such that when you start now creating that habit for yourself, it becomes a bit easier to actually walk through it. And I think it's because you have seen that it is working for somebody else, and it means that it can be able to work for you. So what we consume is also important when it comes to what we consume in terms of whatever that we are reading, whoever we are listening to, our friends, people that we talk to, all those people create an impact in how we actually are able to handle these setbacks and achieve our purpose in the end.
Yeah, to add on what you said, I liked that point where you talked about shifting like the habits depending on your schedule. Flexibility is very important because most of the time you'd find you might literally stop doing something simply because you feel like my schedule has changed, I can no longer do it in the morning. And this really disturbed me last year when we were breaking for summer, when it came to my morning routine and just whatever I used to do. Because normally, initially I would wake up at 5 and I would have 2 hours, and 2 hours would be for maybe prayers and all the morning routine stuff, and then 1 hour going to work out, and I would go outdoor. But now when we went for the break, it meant that the schedule completely changed. I was no longer having time like to wake up in the morning because of maybe whatever plans I had or whatever schedule I had at that time. So the only time you would find you're now available is that maybe you're waking up at 11 or you're waking up at 10 and you're awake maybe between 10 to let's say 4 before something else starts. And it took me a long while to really realize that no, you actually can do these things just when you wake up still. You don't have to wait for a day that you'll now have to wake up at 5 to do them. And it had really disoriented my schedule. Before I noticed, I had already spent so much time and had so many missing days in many of my routine aspects. But the moment I realized that there's power in flexibility when it comes to habit consistency and maintenance, I now went back to actually just going back to the habit, and it really helped me. And that's such a powerful thing that you've brought out. Please be flexible in your habits. If you cannot do something that you've normally scheduled for it in the morning, try and see at what time it's gonna fit. Because if you're going to just be rigid and wait for that point, you'll end up failing to have that habit, because you'd find that priorities change, and most of the times our to-do lists would go with our urgencies. So priorities do change. So try and be flexible with your schedule, depending on even the habits that you've formed and the habits that you're trying to incorporate. Another thing I would say, a tip for handling that, is going back to your why. You've said it well, going back to the basics, going back to the ground. I liked how you described the cue, craving, response, and reward aspect in terms of breaking that habit and identifying the root cause. You can also look at it in a way that what actually triggered you to start having this habit, what actually triggered you, or what triggers you and motivates you to actually start working out, to actually start saving, to start reading, what really trigger you. And from that moment you would find that you will start getting that craving and feeling the need to actually going back to that habit that you're starting to be inconsistent with. And that's really powerful, understanding why. When things are just shaky and all over the place, just go back to the ground rules. What really made you go back to the basics, and you're going to find your way up.
Wow, that's a word there. That's a word there.
Yeah.
I would just want to add on discipline.
Yes.
Because with flexibility, we also need discipline.
Yes, very
Saying
true.
that even if I did not read in the morning, I can still read at 10 when I wake up.
Yes.
That requires discipline.
True.
And discipline is a muscle that you have to continue building over time. You have to continue building over time. So yes, be flexible, but also maintain the discipline that you, despite not doing it today, I will do it tomorrow, and I have to do it tomorrow. It has to be done tomorrow.
Yeah, I think we'll just have one of these days a very detailed episode on discipline, because this is something most people struggle with. And let me speak for myself.
For yourself.
Yeah, and I also struggle. Okay, we also struggle with it. So it's something that we will really have an in-depth discussion and find out ways to really help.
Yes.
And that brings us to our last section. You've talked about identifying triggers to break bad habits, and having the craving to not continue with that habit, and to a point that you now manage to really do away with it, or just ensure that you've slowly done away with it. What do you think is the importance of gradually reducing bad habits? We've talked about gradually starting small when we're building not bad habits, when we're building good habits. It works in the same way. Why do we need to gradually reduce small bad habits, instead of just one day waking up, today I've decided I'm no longer sleeping late, I'm no longer doing this bad habit? What do you think is the importance of this?
It's very important, because everything you have to start small. You're a young girl before you actually became an adult. So you have to follow the process. That is just how our body works.
Yes, very true.
And the same thing that I also talked about, familiarity. Your body is used to this way of doing things. So there is no way you're going to just remove this one thing.
Yeah.
The body will be rebellious.
True.
It's the same thing maybe an adolescent child, the parent maybe takes a phone from them without any explanation. It's the same way. They will be very rebellious, and the results that you want to achieve, you will not be able to achieve them because of your manner of handling the situation. So I believe it's very important. The same way, creating new habits, start small. Breaking bad habits, start small. You have to gradually release yourself of that bad habit. And if you are doing it gradually, that specific time that you are performing that bad habit, it sounds so bad. So
bad habits are relative, so you will choose yours.
That time that you are spending to create or perform that bad habit, you have to ensure that you replace that bad habit with something else, or that time that you have created vacant with something else. Otherwise, then it is very easy to find yourself backsliding and going back to the bad habit, because if you have free time, if now you have removed a bad habit and now you have free time there, then it's then it's like, what am I doing with this time?
True.
So you will just find yourself just going back to what is familiar to you, which is now the bad habit.
That's very true. And I would say also, just on the same, it's also just to enable us to stay healthy mentally and psychologically, because I feel like if you just shock your body, your brain with a particular habit, like today I've stopped this, I feel like it's like you're shocking your body, you're shocking your brain, and it's not going to allow you to gradually set into a good transition into the good habits that you're trying to perform. Yes, true. So I just believe it's also for health sake to just ensure that we are psychologically getting ready and preparing ourselves to completely do away with a particular habit, and psychologically and mentally being at peace with now doing away with that habit completely at the end of it all. It's good to get ready for something, and that is why I believe also just gradually letting go of the bad habits would really help. Yes.
And there is no time frame for creating a new habit. There is no time frame. So just giving yourself grace that, yes, I want to achieve this maybe by the end of the month. But there is not really a time frame that it has to be done by the end of the month. So if you are disciplined, because discipline, now this is where discipline plays a huge role. So if you are disciplined enough, you will be like, okay, I didn't manage to create it this month, but I can be able to do it next month. And just giving yourself that grace that yes, I can do it, I can still do it.
That's really powerful and a very good way to end the show. And make sure you just also share your tips on habit formation, what has worked for you, how you break bad habits, and anything related to also what you want us to discuss more on habits and habit formation.
Yes, so also want to hear from you in the comment section. So don't forget to also comment in case you have any new habits that you are creating that you would want us also to learn from you. And definitely don't forget to subscribe and share with friends and family.
Until next